So as mentioned, I'm here to talk to you about China and how to compete in the context of what we're facing from the Chinese OEMs. But I think first it's worth putting some real context into why this matters so much, okay? So to bring it really close to home, I had a meeting yesterday at our offices, so our office is in Markham. There were 8 people in this meeting. Of the 8 people in the meeting, 4 of them didn't speak a word of English because they're Chinese, because they were there fresh from China. So this stuff isn't happening over there. It's now part of the meetings we're having in Markham, and it's going to be becoming very real, very quick to all of us. Now, it's a very fast-changing landscape, and you guys will all have noted that I think Biden has come out and said, well, we're going to put 100% tariffs on Chinese vehicles. We're going to build a wall around North America. We're going to put, because 100% tariffs will keep them out. There's already a 25% tariff. So when you see a Polestar rolling down the road, that car's already had a 25% tariff put on it, and it's still cost-effective in the market. But no problem, Biden will put 100% tariff on it, and if Trump gets elected, chances are he'll keep that. What's a significant problem with that approach? Have you guys been following the pace of plant construction in Mexico? Chinese companies are building plants in Mexico as fast as they possibly can. Why does that matter? If it's in Mexico, it's within the USMCA trade agreement, it can't be protected by a tariff. So the tariffs are, how many are familiar with French history? How many know about the Maginot Line? You know, the French were like, this is no problem, we got the Maginot Line. Until the Germans said, oh, we went around the side. So what? What if the tariffs do hold? What if we don't see an onslaught of Chinese vehicles in North America? Why is it still an enormous problem? It's an enormous problem because the companies that you guys, the brands that all of you guys represent, are global companies. And right now, North America is about the only place on earth that is not feeling the onslaught of Chinese vehicles. Europe, it's having a huge impact. South America, it's having a huge impact. So there are more than a few economists that have said if the current initial impact in Europe extrapolates, Volkswagen can't survive as a company. Volkswagen's the biggest car maker on earth. General Motors, I mean, it used to be when the legacy automakers would go over to China, what they were doing is they were putting together joint ventures, because you had to put together a joint venture to be able to sell into the Chinese market. Joint venture could be also called technology transfer, forced technology transfer. But what's happening now is because the Chinese consumers have basically said, well, actually, we really prefer domestic product. So the sales of legacy brand cars in China has plummeted so much that, as you guys will know, a lot of them have actually exited China. Ford has just said it's not even worth it. But what they're still doing, because the cost advantage is so high, is they're actually making product in China that they are bringing back here. So, you know, the profitability model of the OEMs all of you guys work under is so intertwined with China that whether the vehicles sell here or not, and eventually they absolutely will, it's going to have a huge impact. Now, you could also say to yourself, yeah, but this is all EVs, and the sales growth of EVs is slowing, and when Polyev comes in, he's going to throw out the 2035 mandate, and you know, we're all moving towards a more sensible balance of hybrids, internal combustion. Well, there's a lot of truth in all of that, but interesting little tidbit for you to take home and impress your partners with. China exports more ICE vehicles than EVs by a long shot. So let's not think that the China OEM issue is simply an EV issue. And again, this is sort of an interesting one, you know, in sort of thinking of it being far away. How many people have heard of the BYD Seagull? I know you will have. So the Seagull is noteworthy because the Seagull is a full-featured, full EV that sells for about $10,000. Now, I was speaking at an event in Detroit in the fall, and the VW's global head of strategy was up, and he was speaking, and he was asked, you know, the affordability issue is one we've all heard a lot about, we've all read a lot about. He was asked, how fast are you guys going to be able to get an affordable vehicle to market? And he said, we are doing everything we can. We're working flat out on this. And we're going to, for now, define affordability as $35,000 US for a full EV. And he said, we figure we can have that vehicle to market in 3 years. Well, the Seagull can sell for 10 grand now. And again, don't think it's so far off. I was down at the Consumer Electronics Show in January in the States, which has really probably become the most important car show on earth. And I had the chance to touch and feel and sit in one. Now, I don't particularly want one, but it is there. So, a couple more little tidbits. This is an interesting one. I was in a meeting that illustrated the power of centralized decision-making in China. And the debate, or what highlighted it, was there was a Chinese car company that wanted to come and bring some vehicles to the Toronto Auto Show. And they weren't selling in Canada yet, but they just wanted to have them on the floor to start to gauge consumer reaction, to start to gauge dealer reaction, and to sort of impress upon the government types who are going to go by the auto show that, hey, this is real and we're really interested in engaging. They had the vehicles all prepped. The vehicles were actually sitting in a warehouse ready to come. Everything was ready to go. In the end, they didn't make it because they weren't allowed unless they got a decision from the central government in Beijing. So it gives you an idea of how China operates. This isn't an economic decision. It's not a business decision. It's a centralized political decision. And so why that becomes really powerful is it makes you realize that if the government in that instance said, well, we actually don't think we want those cars there yet, it doesn't happen. Now let's start to imagine when the flip side of that decision comes and the central government in Beijing says, we absolutely need to dominate the North American market. They will do anything anything and everything they can to do that. So then why might, and this stuff is just fun to play around with in one's head. No, really it is. And then we're going to tell you how you'll be perfectly safe in the future anyway. Why might the government in Beijing make such a decision? Why is the automotive industry suddenly becoming such a big deal in terms of geopolitics and Chinese-Western relations? To massively oversimplify, the Chinese government has a simple bargain with the Chinese population. I mean, we all know that since Xi has been the Chinese leader, China has seen less democracy, less openness, more authoritarian imposition, all of those things. It's been quite a dramatic change in that time. So why have people put up with it? Why have people been willing to accept it? Because of the flip side of the simple bargain. I will put up with you constraining my liberties and my democratic tendencies as long as you keep giving me a better standard of living. And to give full credit to the Chinese government, over the last few decades, more people have been lifted out of poverty in China than in any other point in human history. The problem is that is becoming more of a challenge. We've seen lots of coverage about how the real estate market has become such a tough piece in China. So there was a tremendous leaning into the automotive industry as a place, as a source of jobs, as a source of wealth, and as a source of continuing that bargain, such that the capacity, the manufacturing capacity for cars in China right now, so right now they're making about 40 million cars a year, of which about 30 million are consumed domestically, which is like wild numbers. But what it means is they've got 10 million cars sitting on lots that have to go to export markets because they've already been built. They actually have the manufacturing capacity to supply every single market on Earth, period. And so it gives us a sense of just how important all of this is. All right, so let me dive into this deck, and because I've already been talking for a while and because Matt went a bit long, we're going to whip through some of it, and off we go. So I've talked about the challenge. And by the way, you say, well, no problem, we'll win on product. It's going to be like when the Hyundai Pony came and it was a bag of crap, and not a problem. We'll win on quality, we'll win on product. The vehicles that are going to come over are good vehicles. They are vehicles that consumers will embrace. I was sitting in the office of one of the Canadian OEMs. We were talking about this as sort of the fundamentally customer experience as the heart of it. And he said we will not win on product. And this is somebody whose brand has glowing JD Power scores. And he says, we don't believe we're going to win on product. We believe we have to win on customer experience. Anyway, we've talked about the challenge. I'll whip through a couple of quick numbers. That's roughly the size of the Canadian market. That includes some heavy-duty stuff. But what's the point? The point is we're a mature, flat market. We are not about to become a 3 million new vehicle sales market. It's basically a mature, flat market. And that's fine. You have your piece of the pie. Do a good job. You'll protect your piece of the pie. But there's already a bunch of new players that want some of that pie that we've already agreed isn't growing. It's interesting living in Toronto. When Teslas first started appearing, it was like, oh, that's cool, there's Tesla. Now, of course, there's Teslas everywhere. I am now at a point where in any given week, I will see a Rivian, a VinFast, I will see all of these in the wild. But there's a whole lot more coming, Matt hinted at, do you know there's actually over 100 Chinese automotive OEMs? BYD is probably the one to think about the most. My mother-in-law lives in Barbados. She's been driving an MG for 3 years. She's a Brit by origin. She loves the fact that it's an EV and doesn't care a rat's that it's a Chinese car. For her, it's an MG. And this is all stuff, this we're going to belt through because it's all stuff you know. What do people want from a consumer experience? Convenience, transparency. You talked about things taking too much time. Personalized, know-me experiences. At each stage of the process, they don't want to have to start the conversation over again. If they've been spending a bunch of time up on the OEM site, then they come into your store. They would love to be able to have what they've already done flow through. But it's actually even worse than that. If they phone the dealership and somebody answers and they say, hi, yeah, no, I need to talk to somebody because of this, and this, and you say, okay, great, no problem. I'm going to get that department for you. And then you transfer it through to that department. And rather than, as part of the transfer, saying, hey, this call's coming in, this is what they're calling about, instead, the call gets transferred through, the next person says, hey, how can I help you? Oh, I thought I told you guys that. So we all know. And fundamentally, that's a question that customers ask a lot. This is an interesting stat. It's not a new stat, but it's an interesting stat. When asked what matters most, 19% said, most important thing is price. You know, I'll put up with a lousy experience. I need to get the best price. More than twice as many said, as long as the price is fair, actually what I really want is a great experience. So we actually probably worry more about price than we need to. The guy who put this deck together said, you know, it's always good to quote McKinsey. McKinsey knows what they're talking about. If they say the new battleground is customer experience, that's probably the new battleground. Interesting case study, and you know, again, we look at. So this gentleman is writing in the Jing Daily, which is a publication in China looking at the luxury market and researching big ticket items. And there was a couple of interesting takeaways from this. One of the key findings, 2/3 of brand defections have nothing to do with the product or the quality of the service offering. It's the quality of the human-to-human experience in acquiring that product or service. And here's the really good news for you guys. You know, in a world where there's direct-to-consumer models, there's agency models, there's all kinds of questions of exactly what is the role of the dealership in the future. If you wanted to understand definitively why the dealership has a role in the future, that's why. Because what you guys deliver, you have the potential to deliver, is the human-to-human experience that will cause that retention. Key findings, what makes a top-performing salesperson? They're not transactional. They build genuine relationships. What does that look like? You know, you had one of your slides and it sort of kicked up a big rectangle in the middle that said, it's a person. What great salespeople do to avoid making something purely a transactional experience is all of these things. They recognize the person in front of them is a person. Great. So you need to be transparent and create these great experiences, but how do you do it? We'll throw a definition up there. I think most of you would say, yeah, I know what hospitality means, but just so we're all working off the same baseline. We take this so seriously. What Clarify is doing right now, so I'll give you a bit of background. A big part of what Clarify does is work for a number of OEMs where we write retail standards, we send teams into stores all across the country to train and evaluate against those retail standards. And as you can imagine, the coaches who do that have a tremendous amount of automotive background. We've actually started putting this team together that has absolutely no automotive background, but what we're finding is there's tremendous demand at both the OEM and the dealer level to say, if we know customer experience is actually how we're going to win or lose, we're going to retain our customers in the face of whatever the product onslaught is, because we have that customer experience nailed, we need to look beyond automotive. So we've actually put together a team, interesting bunch. Jennifer spent most of her career in Asia. Anybody who has experienced amazing customer experience in North America, I can tell you it pales in comparison to amazing customer experience in Asia. It's remarkable. Clarence is an interesting guy. He actually created the whole Fairmont Gold program. And funny tidbit, he is a butler. And whenever Queen Elizabeth would come to Canada, she would say, yeah, you got to get me Clarence. So he was Queen Elizabeth's guy. And Patricio, so he's on our team, and what he does when he's not working for us, he's au Quebec, he works for Bombardier, and if you, as I'm sure a number of you will be doing this summer, go in and drop $60 million on a corporate jet, they have a 5-day experience that introduces you to your jet, and that's what Patricio does. So these guys have some really interesting chops in terms of what makes great hospitality. So what we did, and also to give you a break from listening to me, is we said we're going to ask them some questions and we'll let them tell you what great customer experience is. So, What does hospitality mean to you as someone who is an expert in hospitality?
Make them feel they can trust you. When they walk into your care, I try to make them feel like they're the most important person they are. They're not other clients, they are the client. So hospitality really is make them feel like home.
Hospitality to me is really creating memorable moments and genuine connection with every guest that comes through the door.
I think the easiest way to answer that question is bringing to realization the fact that hospitality exists everywhere. So any human being that gets into the art of welcoming someone or extending kindness or taking care of any individual, that's the art of hospitality. What I think hospitality is the art of engagement that exists everywhere, all around us. But I think being more aware that is actually an experience that's happening, even if you're opening a door for someone when you're going into a drugstore, that's the art of hospitality. You've just made someone's day by assisting, or even just saying good morning. It can change someone's, demeanor.
This is the photo op. We distilled their kind thoughts down into 3 simple bullets you can take back to the store with you. How many people have seen on the floor of a dealership, there's a customer, let's say they're waiting in the service area, and one of the product advisors is walking through going from somewhere to somewhere, and they don't want to pick up a conversation with this customer because this person's here for a service conversation, not a sales conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to speed up slightly as I walk by. I'm sure someone in service will be with them soon. That's not what the team thinks you should be doing. Even a simple hello. Whoop. So we asked, do you agree with the idea that there is both art and science in the delivery of a great customer experience?
Absolutely, I do. So the art of guest service is being able to emotionally connect with every guest that comes through your door, and the ability to anticipate their needs and be able to take those needs and tailor the experience for them. And that really does become an art, because you don't want to be cookie cutter for every person that comes through. You want to make sure that the guest that comes to see you feels special and unique and welcomed. And the science behind this would be the metrics and the data collection, making sure that your guest surveys are tracking your guest behavior and being able to have you improve on things you might have missed the first time or things that they prefer, and continuously improve the experience for them. An example of that would be if you came in to see me and you were leaving on vacation, for instance, and then you came back 3 months later and I said, wow, I haven't seen you since you left on vacation. So if the guest tells you they're going on vacation and then they tell you where they're going and then you don't see them again for a few months, when they come back and if you say, oh, hi, great to see you again. How was Spain? How was your vacation? And it's one sentence, but that can feel very special.
I absolutely do, because I think the science behind it, I think it's science comes, in the form of emotional intelligence. And one of the key foundations of emotional intelligence is the ability to read the non-verbal cues. For example, tone, positioning of one's body, how someone's, eye contact, how, I'm saying, I can help you. So that I think is definitely a component of science. And I think art is, the ability in which you interact, which involves flair and style.
Yes, especially with CRMs. The system that you got, the recorder, named it a black book for me when I started. I noted everything that a guest like or dislike, or special room, or a special year or day that they used to come to town, Now you have the system, you have the technology, you can have it there and available for everybody on the team. So yes, without being too intrusive, the most information you have from your guests, the better it is.
So, distilling that down, creating a genuine emotional connection, tailoring the experience, being anticipatory. The CRM is interesting. Matt referenced, these systems that provide all this tracking and recording and all this that we don't go back and look into. But if you think about, you know, on the one hand, one of the challenges we've always had from a customer experience standpoint in this business, we don't see our customers every week. We don't see them frequently. So we need to try to find ways and retain the ways that will make it a personal experience. But imagine how simple it would be, but how powerful it would be, is if a customer came in and in the conversation, let's say they're in for the summer tire changeover, and they mentioned they're going on vacation to Spain. Imagine if that simple thing, 4 or 5 words, got captured in the notes field in the CRM for that customer. And then when they came back for the winter tire changeover in the fall, the staff knew to look in that notes field. They see customer went to Spain, and customer comes in now and says, yeah, here to get my winter tires changed over. Yeah, great, we'll get that taken care of. Tell me, how was Spain? Can you imagine the impact that, I mean, it's so simple, but the impact that will have on the customer, because suddenly what that customer knows is that the store, because they may well not be talking to the same person, the store believes they are a person. Gang, coaches, single most important hospitality learning.
The most important thing that I learned early on in my career that I have worked on for the past 30 years is really using empathy and understanding with the guest, and once again to understand their needs, and understanding that a guest interaction isn't like a regular service interaction. We're creating experiences. Yeah, understanding that you're not just doing a sale, you're not just providing a meal or a stay, you're actually creating something they're going to remember and be able to think about for years to come. There's still times when I smell a certain scent and it reminds me of a hotel I stayed in Thailand like 18 years ago. And I just get that whiff of like a lemongrass or something. And I feel happy because I had a great stay and I had so many great experiences while I was there. And I think that's the key. You don't want to be forgettable. And if you can create an experience that stays with the guest, then you're doing your job properly.
It's extremely an emotional quotient and not transactional. I think that's been the cornerstone of how I interact in the world of hospitality.
Gain their trust. I think trust, be true to yourself. So if you take good care of them and make them feel that they are the important, they are the taking the decisions, you know. In our industry, we always try to upsell or do things or do the extra tour or, you know, go to that restaurant because, you know, we know them, but it's how they make them feel. Trust is the trust, it's gain their trust. Because when you gain their trust, they're going to tell everybody. Do one thing wrong and you lose them forever.
Relationship, not transaction. Be empathetic, build trust. And as you guys are seeking to differentiate, and now that we've established that the way that you're going to retain your customers and grow your customers in the face of new brands fighting for your piece of the pie, what advice do you guys have for dealers?
So I think, in my experience, it's content versus tone. So the content is what you say. Culturally, sometimes it's the tone in which you say it, or even the nonverbal, like eye contact, because you know the adjustment of certain cultures is looking at the forehead is more acceptable than looking in someone's eyes. The handshake is not as powerful as in some places or with some cultures than it is with others.
Just things I've been mentioning already. Personalization. Track your data. Use technology. Use the CRM systems. Not make the guest work for any reason. Not let the guest repeat themselves. Let everything be personalized. So I would say, just in general, for that answer would be personalization, tracking preferences, and creating comfortable, welcoming spaces.
Be welcoming, big smile. Doesn't matter what happened in your house, what happened 5 minutes before you got into to your office, your job, your desk. You forget that, and it's kind of being in a theater, really. You are the smiley guy, the helpful guy, the guy that goes above and beyond for the client. And it's hard to say, but you have to be natural at it. You have to want it to do it. The day you don't want to do it is the day you you hang your skates.
Create personalized experience. Use your CRM systems and other tools to capture simple preferences, simple bits of data that you can feed back to the customer. If you feed back to them something they have said to you, what you have said is that you listened, and what you've said is that they matter. And this last point, I think Matt referenced this as well. Hire for a hospitality mindset and train for everything else. Everything else is trainable, but if you can hire people who, as Patricio says, actually genuinely want to do this, you make your life a lot easier. So, you all have processes and standards that your store operates to, that your brand operates to. I know we've written some of them. That's great. They might, if you don't follow those, you can get in real trouble. But following them will get you to the line of maybe meeting customer expectations. What's going to future-proof your business and grow your business is getting up into that exceptional zone and getting way beyond customer expectation. And it's the kind of hospitality things we talked about here. That'll differentiate your dealership. Is going to help you retain customers. And that last point's really important. It actually doesn't cost anything to do it. You guys all have the tools. There's nothing stopping you from implementing these things right now, particularly now that you realize it's one of the big rocks. And if you're going to take a picture of anything, take a picture of this. I think it's a really, really powerful quote, and it's the truth. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's Maya Angelou said that. That's it. Thank you very much.